Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. I am Vedant Agarwal. The big business story we are tracking on NDTV. Well, the Adani Group has categorically rejected Hindenburg 2.0 that says that the Sebi chief owned stakes in the two offshore funds allegedly mentioned in the original Hindenburg report. The Adani Group says these reports and these claims are malicious and a bid to malign the conglomerate. The Adani Group says that all aspects of the earlier report have been investigated thoroughly and proven baseless by no less than the Supreme Court. The conglomerate has strongly denied the latest allegations as well, saying that these are manipulative. In its statement, the Adani Group called Hindenburg's report a calculated, deliberate effort to malign their standing. Meanwhile, India's market regulator chief, in the line of the short seller's fire, says that these allegations are baseless and that all the required disclosures have been furnished before the Sebi. Meanwhile, 361, a top wealth management firm, has also clarified in an exchange notification that throughout the fund's tenure, the IPE Plus Fund 1 made zero investments in any shares of the Adani Group, either directly or indirectly through any fund. Top business leaders say the Hindenburg report is a hit job that lacks intellectual rigor. But before we get you all the reactions, a Sebi statement has also now come in. Earlier, of course, the Sebi chief had issued a brief reaction, but now the Sebi has urged investors to remain calm. This is the official Sebi statement, given the fact that it's the Sebi chief who is in the line of fire. In fact, let me read out some important bits from the Sebi statement. It says, investors should remain calm and exercise due diligence before reacting to such reports. Investors may also like to take a note of the disclaimer in the report that states that the readers should assume that the Hindenburg research may have short positions in the securities covered in the report. Now remember, the Sebi statement also says that the allegations made by the Hindenburg research against the Adani Group have been duly investigated by the Sebi, or the market regulator. In fact, it also invokes the Supreme Court's January order, saying that the Sebi had completed 22 out of 24 investigations into the Adani Group. Remember, the Supreme Court had given a clean chit to the Adani Group back in January 2024. Now, the Sebi also says that over the years, we have built a robust regulatory framework that not only aligns with the best global practices, but also ensures protection of investors. And well, political reactions also coming in. Top economists say that it lacks intellectual rigor. In fact, senior advocate Mahes J Malani says that the much hyped report is a damn squib and that the government must act against what he calls anti-India elements. Top BJP leaders, including union ministers, allege that there is a larger conspiracy and that the opposition may have a hand in creating anarchy in India amid the economic rise. The opposition, of course, has hit out at the Sebi over these allegations. Take a look at all the reactions that have come in on this story.
कांग्रेस का एक ही काम है, देश में अराजकता फैलाना, देश को विवादित मामलों में उलझाना.
By attacking the independent regulator Sebi and by casting aspersions on the chairman of Sebi, I don't think this foreign bank is attempting to do anything but create more chaos and more destabilize the Indian economy and the Indian markets.
विगत कई वर्षों से जब जब भारत में संसद का सत्र चलता है, तब तब विदेश में कोई ना कोई रिपोर्ट छपती है. याद करिए, बीबीसी की डॉक्यूमेंट्री संसद सत्र शुरू होने से ठीक पहले आई थी. जनवरी में हिंडनबर्ग की रिपोर्ट बजट सत्र शुरू होने से ठीक पहले आई थी. यह संदेह बहुत गहरा हो जाता है कि सीमा पार से विपक्ष के कुछ ऐसे तार जुड़े हुए हैं कि भारत के हर संसद सत्र के दौरान एक अव्यवस्था का वातावरण उत्पन्न किया जाए.
And joining me exclusively on NDTV, senior advocate Mahes J Malani, also a senior member of parliament. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us. You have called Hindenburg 2.0, as it were, a damn squib and an attempt to destabilize the markets.
Yes, it is, because there's nothing new at all. There's a regurgitation of the old allegations, right, which have been discredited in the Supreme Court and dismissed by the Supreme Court, right. If you see the first two paragraphs are based on some money laundering of some over-invoicing of import equipment which has been imported into India and overvalued. Now, if that matter was based on a DRI initial report, right? The matter was considered by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said the DRI final report has exonerated any over-invoicing on the part of the Adani Group. The matter went to the CSTAT, the tribunal, appellate tribunal from the Commissioner of Customs. They have also dismissed it. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court dismissed it. And they tried to rehash it before the Supreme Court in this SEBI inquiry matter, which was finally dismissed again. And the Supreme Court said that the material which you are relying upon is all either old, stale, which has been considered and dismissed, right? Or it is based on third-party organizations with no credibility and no corroboration by anybody.
In fact, you also made an important point in your post that it's in fact the short seller, Hindenburg, which is in the dock, given the fact that SEBI had sent a notice to Hindenburg, and instead of responding to the notice, it's come up with a new report, which as many call a hit job, and also the fact that it lacks intellectual rigor, as top economists put it.
It's a lightweight. I mean, this is not worthy of any reputed research analyst. This is a complete speculative job. I mean, it's based on complete innuendo and a flight of imagination. To do this, first of all, SEBI was directed by the Supreme Court to find out that in view of the massive retailer investor loss caused by the short sale episode, whether there was any violation of Indian law. Pursuant to that, it issued this notice to Hindenburg to ask the circumstances of the short sale and find out if it could detect any illegality. I mean, one obvious illegality was that Hindenburg itself was not allowed to do this kind of thing because it was not a research analyst registered with SEBI. It couldn't do it, right? But it did so anyway. That's a flagrant violation. Instead of replying to all these things, they started targeting SEBI. They started targeting the chairperson of SEBI, Mrs. Booch. So they ran away from the question. The head then dodged the questions. And they did a straight attack, the kind of thing which you have in the Supreme Court by a certain group of people, led by a certain group of lawyers who every time they lose start casting aspersion on the credibility of the bench. So this is what they've done now. Now, when you have nothing to say on merits and facts, you attack the umpire. In this case, SEBI.
Yes, in fact, that's an important point because earlier it was a business conglomerate that was being targeted, and now you have a person holding an important office being attacked without, any facts, without a watertight case.
You see, this is most unfortunate, and we can't let these foreign people who are, these foreign profiteers, if I may call them that, right? They are foreign profiteers sitting in safe harbors like America, right? They do that, and under that protection, they say all kinds of things and rock our markets. This is an attack on, it was actually, both the reports have been around the time of the budget, the first of 23 and of 2024. It is, they are the puppets of people behind them. And as we know, the first short sale, the ultimate interest in that short sale was a Chinese American national who's being investigated for espionage by the US Congress, Anla Cheng.
Right.
So there's much more to this than meets the eye, but we have to wait. As regards the Booches, right? We have to wait and see. They've given a generic statement today, a broad statement.
Yes.
They promised a more detailed statement, and I'm looking forward to it because prima facie, from the allegations, I mean, I'm not holding a brief for the regulator, right? I'm not. I'm taking a very objective view, but prima facie, what I've seen from the allegations by Hindenburg against Mrs. Booch, it is pure rubbish and trash. Yes. It is not worthy, as I said, of a so-called reputed research analyst.
In fact, you go on to the extent of saying that the government must act against these anti-nationals or anti-India elements. So you, in a sense, are saying or reiterating what you've said earlier as well, that this is part of a larger conspiracy.
It's certainly a part, as I gave you the background already. Who were the real principals behind the short sale? A Chinese spy in America. And nobody has denied it. Everybody who was involved in the transaction, they all say, we didn't know that there was a Chinese spy involved in it. I mean, it is Hindenburg itself, which gave the name of Mike Kingdon. He and his trust fund. You mean to say he knew the husband, but he didn't know the wife was a joint holder in the trust fund? Anla Cheng. He is completely suppressed. Was he a Chinese stooge? At least let him come. But SEBI must ask him that.
So,
SEBI must also ask him that. SEBI must now also follow the Supreme Court mandate, right, of seeing whether the retail investor loss constituted any violation of Indian law.
in fact, in its statement, the SEBI chief has said that whatever disclosures were required were furnished before the market regulator.
That is as far as that they're talking about their own disclosures. Their own disclosures have already been made prior to their appointment, prior to Mrs. Buch's appointment, either as a whole-time director or then as the chairman of SEBI. And it seems to be completely clean. I think she's been completely transparent. The husband and she have been completely transparent. Prima facie, I'm inclined to accept their view. Let us see their more detailed statement and let's see what else Hindenburg and his many allies, both abroad and in India, including Parliament, right? What they have to say.
Right. So, of course, that is perhaps in the realm of investigation. But my last question to you, Mr. Jit Malani, as you say in your post as well, that this reeks of colonial arrogance of days bygone. So, perhaps this is a larger attempt, as you say, to destabilize the markets and also to target the Indian economy, which has been sort of the bright spot, so to speak, as far as the IMF is concerned and many other global organizations.
Well, no longer are the Indian capital markets to be taken as lightweight. They've been resilient in the face of this attack. They have recovered whatever losses the short sale caused, right? And that is probably troubling a lot of the financial biscuits that operate out of Wall Street.
Raw agent, this word sounds very fancy, but of course there's a lot of technicality linked to it. And of course we have a real life RNAW officer. Sir, I have 3 terms. If you can break it down for us and what they mean. One is handler.
Handler, okay, who motivates the source, guides him at every stage and debriefs him. Because without him, the sources in the hands of a bad handler has turned out to be useless. In the hand of a good handler has produced miracle.
It's kind of a director directing the actor.
Absolutely.
That's kind of a relationship.
I'll tell you an example.
Sure.
There was a person.
Our business correspondent, somebody who tracks markets very closely, Sakshi, is also with us. Sakshi, go ahead. You had a question.
Right. I was just saying, Mr. Sandeep Ghosh, so fresh allegations there, this time from Hindenburg Research, and this time linking the chief of India's market regulator to the Adani Group. So very, very grave allegations there. How do you think we can contain such allegations and the market impact that this were to have in days ahead?
See, where I am frustrated as a ordinary citizen is this, one, Hindenburg is obviously hiding under the US regulation when Adani and others, even if they want to take them to court in the US, there are certain practical difficulties which they can't do. But there are, what I am really pained is by our Indian investigative authorities, there are lots of other things which have surfaced in the whole, this entire Hindenburg deal, the revelations and various other things. And it's been kind of handed over on a platter to the government. Why have they been so tardy in pursuing those? Whereas, you're talking of intellectual rigor. If I were to talk of investigative rigor, for what it's worth, look at this report today, how much of effort, midnight oil or whatever resources have gone into stitching together, however false it may be, with lots of unnecessary details, something which appears to a lay reader might appear to like a very, very incriminating and a very conclusive document. What is preventing our government to probe the other things which are today? Those leads are available, the threads have been available, and why haven't we moved fast enough on that? And because you see, I see it's not a question of Adani or one set of professionals here. There is a much larger conspiracy against India. This so-called allegations of crony capitalism, rest of it, I think it's a much larger thing. There is not just some people against the Modi government or the particular business house. People are also unhappy about, let's say, how our stock market has been performing when the international stock markets have been tanking, how the Indian economy has been performing. And there are people who would like to see not see India grow in that manner, India shine in that manner. And so, therefore, there is a whole effort to pull it down. And what's happening in our neighborhood, when our people are engaged to call about what is happening in the neighborhood, the atrocities and the rest of it, this is, I think, a huge diversionary tactic because the world attention, the global press, everybody would move towards this rather than focusing on issues that's happening around us. And it seems, there seems to be a pattern in things, not just what's happening here. As I said, you can draw extensions of this to what's happening in Bangladesh and elsewhere. I think it's trying to paint one part of the world with the same brush as saying that, these are, authoritarian democracies where crony capitalism is thriving and the rest of it, and discredit the current leadership.
Meanwhile, while the Sebi chief has called the allegations baseless, Sebi has also come out with a detailed statement as far as this entire controversy is concerned. In fact, the Sebi statement has urged investors to maintain calm and to practice due diligence and not go by what a report that is based on insinuations actually says. In fact, Sebi says that both the Sebi chief and her husband were private citizens living in Singapore, and almost 2 years before Madhavi joined Sebi, at no point in time did the fund invest in any bond, equity or derivative of any Adani Group company. At no time has Dhaval been associated with the real estate side of Blackstone either. Sebi says we are committed to ensuring integrity of India's capital markets. This, of course, as Sebi says, that this is all baseless and based on insinuations. Meanwhile, listen to what the former Sebi director, JN Gupta, told my colleague Sakshi. Take a look.
We are joined by Mr. JN Gupta, former executive director of Sebi. Thanks very much for your time. This, of course, someone who's been part of the of Sebi at large, this fresh allegation and a grave one at that against the Sebi chief. How do you think this will impact the stock markets in days to come, as well as the entire standing of the market regulator at large?
Good evening. Good evening to your viewers. Thank you for having me. I have to first say that it is very difficult for anybody to say that what is going to be the impact of this report on market tomorrow, because every investor is free to take his own call. But I would say, if I were the investor, what I will do? If I were the investor, I would read this report and throw it in dustbin. And probably the dustbin will also say, don't throw this report to me. It is not even worth this place. So this report is as rubbish as it could be. Therefore, I do not expect any intelligent investor or anybody to give cognizance to this report in any manner and continue their life as if nothing has happened.
Right, sir. But for those who are reading just the headlines, and those who are, of course, reading just the peripherals, what would you say to them? How do you think India can, and as well as from the economic standpoint, as well as the stock market point of view, we have seen panic reactions in the past. How do you think allegations and baseless reports, as well as allegations really coming in at large, serious and grave ones at that, can be contained from a market and economic standpoint?
I will say, see, everything has its own time and everything has its own reputation and everything. When in 2023 Hindenburg report came, it created a stir in the market. It caused mayhem in the market because people thought that something is really wrong. Otherwise, nobody will be writing such a voluminous report. But 15 or 20 months down the line, we see that What was the problem? It is no more there. Most of the Adani stocks have, to the best of my knowledge, have already recouped their losses, and investors are there. So what has happened? You tried to fool somebody, they got fooled, but then your first attempt failed. It does not mean that you keep on making attempts and all your attempts will have the same success. You have seen earlier, they raised the issue on the Kotak. It didn't have an impact. And they were issued show cause notice, and now they have caused something. So here, at least public intelligent enough to say that, oh, this is a reaction of an action that SEBI has taken. I do not want to connect the two, but yes, the fact is this: if you read the report, all the allegations that have been made are worthless, not even worth discussion.
We are also joined by Mr. Jit Bharara. Thanks very much for your time. First to you, sir. Fresh allegations coming in. The Adani Group also very clearly stating that, look, these are baseless and calculated, deliberate efforts to malign the group's standing. Your thoughts?
The first point is what is Hindenburg's locus standi? If they are a short-selling entity, well, go ahead, do the short selling within the framework of the law, make your money, and that is it. What is the motivation for coming back, investing money into further investigation? Is it an investigation authority? Is it sanctioned by somebody? Or is it a journalistic body making a suo motu investigation for the benefits of Indians? Well, I mean, if it's a journalistic body, it seems to be yellow journalism that they are indulging in, because clearly, if you go line by line of what the report is, each of the lines seems to be a baseless allegation. And I'll take a few as an example. It says, as detailed in our original Adani report, documents from the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, which is DRI, alleged that Adani grossly overvalued the import valuation. Now, that's what it says. It does not say any further detail. A normal reader will believe that DRI is after Adani. Adani is grossly overvaluing its imports, and therefore there is a wrong misdoing. It's only when you go and find out what is this DRI report, it's basically a show cause notice, which is DRI's job. It issues thousands of these show cause notices because it needs to investigate anything where it thinks there is something that needs to be further investigated. The report does not say what was the outcome that came out. And this is from 2014. This is a May 2014 show cause notice, which is being quoted now 10 years later, and using that in a very convoluted manner to say that there is some wrongdoing going on. That show cause notice has been investigated, done and dusted with. It then says a subsequent investigation by non-profit project Adani Watch in December 2023 shows a bunch of things. Now, it does not say what is Adani Watch, who created Adani Watch, whose business it is to do Adani Watch, who is owning Adani Watch, who incorporated it, who's funding it. There's so many questions that comes out, and it simply gives Adani Watch as a clean chit and says that's an entity which is, because it's non-profit, has to be completely believed in. We don't know why we should believe in that. Where is it incorporated? Where does it come from? Then it goes on to say she personally, which is the chairperson of SEBI, personally wrote to India Infoline using her private Gmail account, doing business through her husband's name to redeem the units in the fund, which is the fund that is being talked about, where they have an investment of about 80 lakh rupees, which is being said to be the fund which actually funded whole of the multi-billion dollars of Adani using 80 lakh rupees. But what is even more funny is that it says using her private Gmail account. Now, what else will she use for doing a private transaction? Will she use her public account? Then it says doing business through her husband's name. If you look at the mail that is already there in the report that Hindenburg has given, it shows that she is doing business on behalf. She says, my husband wants to sell this. And more interestingly, the sale is at a 0.2% loss. So where is money being made? If you go further into all the allegations line by line, and I'll just take as a few examples of how ridiculous these are. It says in brief, despite the existence of thousands of mainstream, reputable onshore Indian mutual fund products, which is under the regulation of SEBI, why is this SEBI chairperson going and investing somewhere else? Well, if you invest into a mutual fund which is under her jurisdiction, then the question will be there is a conflict of interest. She's investing in something where she must have approved it because all mutual funds are approved by SEBI.